Hello, everyone. This is the Inner Voice Show, part of the Evolving Mind series in the Togetherness media. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, psychotherapist and the founder of the Awareness Integration Theory. This is a show about what matters most in our life, our minds, our thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment, in this beautiful journey of life. Today, I will share the tip of the week about how we handle being belittled, or the way we belittle others, and the impact of that. And then I will share the latest research about children born to mothers who are depressed during and after pregnancy are more likely to develop depressive symptoms themselves by age 24. Then I have a chat with Radha Ruparel. She is a global cross-sector leader with expertise in leadership development and personal transformation. She has worked with CEOs, Fortune 500 senior executives, social entrepreneurs, and grassroots leaders around the world, and heads the Collective Leadership Accelerator at Teach for All, a global network of independent organizations in 60 countries committed to developing leadership in classrooms and communities. And she's the author of Brave Now, Rise Through Struggle and Unlock Your Greatest Self. I will answer to your questions this week about why do we make so much effort to gain things and then sabotage ourselves on it. Yep, we do. A lot of us do. So we'll explore that together. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I love to hear from you. Subscribe to my podcast and connect with me through all the social media. I love to hear from you, find out what are some of the topics that you want me to talk about, your questions, all of it. I love to hear from you. But first, here's the tip of the week. Here's the tip of the week. Have you ever been belittled by anyone? I've noticed this week people's reactions when they experience being belittled by someone. Whether someone intended to belittle them or was just stating a fact or sharing their anger, it had a similar effect on the receiver at first. Clarifying someone did not purposely belittle them might alleviate the pain. However, if the act of belittling was deliberate, then rage sets in. When I asked people to let me know which memories sourced their anger and insisted on revisiting them, they realized that the ones they felt belittled by someone or some situation was prevalent, constant. The feeling of shame that gets triggered by being belittled is very toxic. When someone has high esteem and confidence, they're not affected personally. However, they do get angry at the person who purposely tried to belittle them. They will either choose to play the power game and go for the win, communicate assertively, or choose to leave the game. For someone who has a low confidence or low self-esteem, they might take it very personally. They might feel the shame and think that they deserve to be belittled or humiliated and withdraw or get defensive and fight, and sometimes fight to death on that. A person who intends to belittle someone in a verbal aggressive attack, uses sarcasm or plays aggressive, passive aggressive, is using the verbal attacks and gestures as a strategy to hurt or overpower another person. This can easily be seen in all relationships of an intimate relationship, marriages, working environment, co-workers, boss and employee, parent and child, teenagers and parents. Some people are angry and are expressing their anger or being defensive and not realizing that they are, their way of expressing anger is by belittling people. Others are using belittling as their humor and trying to get attention by getting a mutual laugh from others by belittling another person. Regardless of the reason, it is painful for the one receiving it. So let's observe. So I'm going to ask you questions, and I request for you to observe yourself. Be honest with yourself. Is belittling others one of your strategies for overpowering? Is belittling others one of your coping mechanisms? That's the way you cope with the world because you figure that's the only way to create power in a world that you might feel powerless? Do you belittle others just for getting attention, as if that's the only way you know how to get a positive attention in a negative way? Do you need to feel superior to others? Do you feel inferior and want to act superior with belittling everybody else to prove that you are not inferior to them? And not that you are, but is it like there's a way that you feel inferior and that's why you act that way? Do you defend yourself by belittling others? Do you even notice when you're belittling others? I get that a lot when working with couples or even parents. And they're not really aware that their words is up to down and belittling. They just figure, I'm just sharing a fact. But a fact can be shared in many, many different ways. And sometimes it's a habit that we figure we've acquired and just continue without really noticing. How do you feel when you perceive being belittled? If you are the receiver, what happens to you when you perceive it that way? How do you react when you perceive being belittled? Do you get angry? Do you fight back? Do you belittle back? Do you isolate? Do you withdraw? What do you do? What do you think about yourself when you perceive being belittled? Do you think like, I'm nothing, I'm no good, I'm a damaged good, I'm nobody, that's why they have the idea to do this? Do you handle it differently when you perceive someone deliberately belittles you versus unintentionally? Do you get more enraged? Do you want to get revenge? Do you go after them? Do you hold and brew the revenge in your, in your thought process? Do you do it both, whether they did it intentionally, or do you do it more when you think somebody did it purposefully? Do you feel more threatened by someone who did it purposefully? Do you think you deserve it to be belittled? Do you feel powerless over it? To handle it differently if it's done when no one is around versus publicly? Is that what you experience? Like, oh, if somebody belittled me in front of others, I must go ahead and belittle them in front of others too. I must humiliate them in front of others. But if they don't, if it's just me and them, then it can be on a personal level because nobody else was there. And how do you proceed with your relationship with that person? Do you guard up? Do you always feel like in competition with them? Do you feel like I have to create something in my surrounding where they cannot get too close? Do you always look at them with ways to find their vulnerability so you can go back and belittle them? Or is it more like, I just don't want to be around these people, so kind of like move back and say, no, 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 I don't want them around. Or you placate and it's like, okay, as long as I'm not in their radar, it's going to be okay. Or if I make them like me and I would do anything for them to like me, maybe they just stop doing that. Have your parents belittled you? Are you used to that? And because you're used to it, it's like a familiar water that you've swam in, then when other people do it to you, you react to it in a similar way you've done since childhood, or that you do it to others in such a way that it's just been a part of your language. So these are all the ways that you can monitor that way of being. For sure, if there is some sort of a power game that is there continuously, it disrupts relationship. It does not allow safety, trust, closeness to happen when that's part of the game. A lot of times, obviously, it happens. Most of us experience those things as, maybe early as elementary school, definitely junior high. That's what we do best. Like, we become a master of the game around junior high. And somehow as we grow up, we tend to let it go and find ourselves in a place that we're powerful and, we enjoy being with other people and with respect and create close relationships. It could be that at any point that those skills that we've generated in junior high can show up at any moment, whether they're, where we feel powerless and we need to gain power, or we are in competition at work, or in any place that, that needs to show up as a coping mechanism. But to really look at how are we using it? Why are we using it? Is it useful? What type of relationships can we create if that is part of the way that we are with people? And then how are we receiving it and how do we react to it? So it's important for you to see if that strategy works for you or not. For more observational skills and seeing how to think, feel, and behave in different areas of your life, go to my book, Life Reset, the Awareness Integration Path to Create the Life You Want. For healing and releasing the toxic residuals of belittling, or acquiring skills to deal with your anger in a more healthy way. And express it in a more healthy way, or even gaining attention in a more healthy way, so that you don't have to only get the consequences of being belittled or belittling others. Be right back. Here's the latest research. Children born to mothers who are depressed during and after pregnancy are more likely to develop depressive symptoms themselves by the age of 24. This is according to a new research led by the University of Bristol. By the age of 24, young people born to mothers with antenatal and postnatal depression had depression scores 3 times, almost 3 points higher than offsprings of mothers with no depression. The study also considered the impact of the father's depression, although the sample was very, very small. The study was published in the British Journal of Psychiatry, and the study looked at survey information for 5,029 individuals during a 14-year period from ages of 10 to 24 to examine how the risk of depression occur across childhood and adolescence. Researchers also found that offsprings of mothers with a history of postnatal depression had an increase in depressive symptoms over time, while those with mothers with history of antenatal depression have higher overall levels of depression throughout. This suggests that the importance of antenatal and postnatal depression support and interventions are important. Thanks to data from world-renowned health study Children of 90s, also known as Avon Longitudinal Study of Parents and Children, researchers could explore the pattern of offspring depressive symptoms based on the various timing of maternal depression, and see if there were any characteristics or differences in when and for what duration the offsprings of depressed mothers were depressed themselves. The researchers stated, by tracking trajectories of repeated measures of mood in offsprings of depressed mothers from childhood through to adulthood, they were able to provide further insight into how the well-known intergenerational risk of depressed mood presented itself over time. The study showed that the children of parents with both antenatal and postnatal depression are at greatest risk of depression themselves, and this risk appears to persist throughout adolescence into early adulthood. The research looked at the impact of the depression in both mothers and fathers, and it seems like the timing that shows that the timing of depression in parents during pregnancy and after childbirth, or both, and if the mother and father were both affected, are all important risk factors for the children's future mental health. And the good news is There are effective evidence-based treatments, and the earlier we can provide them, the better it is. So part of the importance of this conversation and the research is that many times mothers or fathers, they even assume that if they are depressed, that having a child or the next child would actually make them feel better. Unfortunately, it's not going to make them feel better. Some people who have been depressed, they're definitely going to have postpartum depression. So it's important for the person, not only from a genetic place, but also behaviorally, knowing that they need to get treatment, because a parent who is depressed, their demeanor, their behavior, their tonality, the conversation they have, through their voice, through their words, through their teachings, all of that is going to be given to the child. So the child not only genetically has that, but experientially and behaviorally, that becomes part of their life. That becomes part of the way they view life. And so depression becomes part of the schema or the storyline that they have about themselves, about the world, the meanings that they give it, and that's how they move forward. So I've heard children as young as 5 years old, where there's one mistake or there's something happening, and that their brother takes something away, and they give this type of a generalization of everybody, is going to take away something. It's hopeless. I'm never going to get better. And you could hear these types of sentences that are part of a child that is hearing this from their mother or father, and they repeat these sentences, which are a complete generalization of one or two things that are going wrong. So you could see that if you are depressed, get help. Help is out there. There's behavioral help, there's psychotherapy, they're looking at all of that. There's medical help. There are also different versions of new treatments that have come up across the United States that you can help with brain stimulation, with ketamine, with different types of ways of handling the brain that are going to be different than just side by psychotherapy, to give you different skills. So if you are depressed, please seek help, because it's you don't deserve to be suffering when there are treatments. In the model that I created, awareness integration model, in the book Life Reset, we did a study on specifically depression and anxiety in Cal State Long Beach, and we saw that just even by psychotherapy and even self-help, using this model of awareness integration, people minimize their depression about 6 to 7%. So I'm sharing this with you because I know that we could definitely take away some of the symptoms and give you skills on how to handle it. So take care of yourself, because you deserve it. This is the Ask Me segment. Thank you so much for sending your questions. One of the questions that I got is, why do we sabotage ourselves? How come that we set up a goal, we really want this, we make effort, we go on and get it, and then zip, hold it, don't go further in it, and we start sabotaging ourselves. And it's like, what happened? If I didn't want it, why did I make such an effort to create it? And I've seen this with people who have gone and put themselves into school and education, and they came out with $200,000 of or more of a loan, and then yet they get their degrees, they get their licenses, and then they sabotage it one way or another. They're not pursuing it, they won't go in it, they'll just say, I didn't want to anymore. Or they do something within that profession that their licenses are taken away, and their career is pretty much shot. I've known people who've wanted to be married and have children and create a family, and that was their biggest goal, and they got it all. Finally, they got married with the mate that they really wanted, and all is well. And then they begin sabotaging it by their anger and sense of entitlement, and constantly fighting within that system of the marriage. And finally, their divorce papers are there, and they're like, I just don't want to be with you anymore. So you can see where people really want something and they do so much to get it, and then ruin it immediately. Well, there appears to be some type of a duality where although one part of us wants something and wants the success and makes the effort, another part has a different belief system. Maybe it has a different belief system in I don't deserve this, or it should be another way, or I don't even know who I am in this space where I know who I was without it and then I wanted it, but then now that I'm here, I have no idea who I am. And then the same type of anxieties of not knowing the uncertainty of the new way of being might trigger a lot of the wrong coping mechanisms or the way that I used to deal with in order to go back. I've known people who wanted to be a certain way. They've worked so hard to get to that weight, and then they didn't know who they were. They lost 50 pounds, 60 pounds, started getting people to look at them and pay attention to them. And they were so uncomfortable with this attention that they started eating again and gained their weight back. So it's almost like there's a wish that we want, and then we get the wish, but we have no idea who we are. So it's important to build a new identity with this new wish. And sometimes we'll get the wish, and then we're trying to build the identity as it shows up. And it's scary for us. So role modeling after people who are in that position, looking at the best that they've created and then integrating it into our system about who I am today as I've gained the new relationship, as I've gained the success of the new business, of the new body image that I have, of the new wealth that I've acquired, all of that. In that way, I can create my new identity, which is a combination of what I was before and who I was before and some of those behaviors, with the combination of a new set of behavior that creates success in the new concept. So if a part of me is sabotaging, is because it hasn't been upgraded to this level and it's still operating on some old level that was there, whether I thought I didn't deserve it, whether I thought I wasn't good enough for it, whether I thought I'm scared and won't be able to survive this, or whether I thought I got it, but it's not something that I wanted to have. So all of those are the different types of belief systems that if I don't attend to it, subconsciously are going to come in and take away everything that I just built. So the awareness of all of these different parts that are coming together and how each one of them may have a different need and comes together, and those needs have to be taken care of and negotiated for me to be in a new business, in a new way of a socioeconomic class, in a new way of a body image that I have, in relationships that I want to be in a new way of vulnerability, in a new way of success. All of those are new ways of being. When we have an image of creation of something, we only have the image of what what the outcome would look like. We might not have the vision of who would I be as that outcome shows up, and would I be comfortable with it or not? And sometimes we won't know all of it until we're there. So sometimes it's on the job training where I have to start integrating those places. Most people, if they're not watching all other areas, all the inner voices that are telling them what I want and what I don't want, and ignore them, deny them, avoid them, those inner voices, if they're not taken care of, they'll come in and will pay you the consequences. So watching, hearing, honoring yourself in all of those aspects will be in a way that you will be able to negotiate. Give those parts of you the things they want, and then integrate in the new system that you've worked so hard to get. Thank you. Well, this was our show today. Thank you so much for being with us. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Togetherness Media. Togethernessmedia.com